I'm still getting a lot of people asking me, now that Joe Biden is president of the United States, is that going to change anything about US foreign and domestic policy? And I tell people, absolutely not. It's not going to change anything. People ask me specifically about Thailand, the US backing the mobs in the streets here in Thailand. Is Biden coming into the White House? Is that going to change this? Is that going to provide an opportunity to talk with the US and get them to stop this behavior? And the answer is no. This has been going on for years and years and years. It went on for 8 years under Obama Biden. It went on for 4 years while Trump was in office, and now Biden is president. It's going to continue because, as I point out every time, US foreign policy is not determined in Washington. It's determined on Wall Street. Washington rubber stamps it. I want to point out this article from New Eastern Outlook. This is a journal that I contribute to, but this is an article by James O'Neill, who consistently writes very, very good articles. And this one is titled, "Faith in a Biden Presidency Likely to be Misplaced." Now, it's a good article, and I suggest that you read through the whole thing, but I'm just going to go right down here to this part about Ukraine. Biden and Ukraine, when he was vice president, that's when the US engineered a coup against the government of Ukraine, overthrew the government with they had the pro-democracy protesters. There were also violent neo-Nazi militants, armed militants, paramilitary organizations involved that you really didn't see the Western media talk about. As a matter of fact, in the beginning, they tried to deny it when the Russian media was covering it. And now they have articles like, Ukraine has a neo-Nazi problem. Yes, no kidding. And Russia tried to warn people that that's what the US was putting into power. And now that it's too late to undo it, now the Western media will admit to it. But anyway, James O'Neill, he's talking about a resolution of the Ukrainian situation is unlikely under a Biden administration. The United States and Western government in general continue to misrepresent the sequence of events in Crimea, treating it as if Russia had acted aggressively in resolving Crimea's conflict with Ukraine. A lot of people don't realize this. Crimea always had special status when it was part of Ukraine. For that period of time. It had its own parliament. It was the Crimean parliament that requested Russia's intervention in Crimea. The people there are Russian. They identify as Russian. And it was just a hiccup in history that they ended up being part of Ukraine. And Crimea's return to Russia was actually a very positive corrective measure. And I think that Russia would have been okay with Crimea being part of Ukraine as long as there was a government in power in Kiev that maintained a balance between East and West. That was what was in the best interests of actually Europe and Russia and the Ukrainian people. They were able to indulge in the best of both worlds. And now they're suffering and kind of being cut off from both because it's a dysfunctional country. The government is cutting its ties with Russia, making it difficult to do business with Russia. And because they are corrupt and violent and mismanaging the country, it makes it impossible for Europe to do business with them. So it's a lose-lose situation, and that's what doing business with Washington gets you. James O'Neill also points out about the personal dimension that Joe Biden played in the Ukrainian crisis in 2013 and 2014, and then, of course, in the years afterwards. His son being appointed to a board of directors of a Ukrainian company and just getting paid this ridiculous salary. He had no qualifications at all to sit on that board of directors. And he was sitting there because his dad helped overthrow the government that was in power in that country. That's how he got that position. So it's petty personal corruption, but on a pretty big scale, I would say, and within a much wider engineered conflict, regime change, and now crisis that's plaguing Ukraine. So that all happened under Obama Biden. Biden was vice president. Biden played a role in that. That's what he did to Ukraine. And if you go down through here And towards the end, we're talking about Russia and China. Think about this, the pivot to Asia that was rolled out under Obama and Biden. And all that is a repackaged, rebooted version of what the US has been doing for decades, since the end of World War II, to encircle and contain China. So that was rolled out under Obama, Biden. It continued under Trump, but under a much more aggressive trade war. And it will continue now under Biden, under a both pivot to Asia plus trade war. Mark my words, that is exactly what's going to happen. And this last paragraph is very important. I'm going to read it out. While there may well therefore be some changes in the style of the Biden presidency over that of his predecessor, it would be a grave error to expect substantial changes. Coupled with that is Biden's obvious commitment to a past era. The world has changed in the past 4 years, and almost none of it to America's liking. The process is likely to continue. The big question will be the United States' response to those changes, and in particular, its willingness or otherwise to accept that the period of United States hegemony is now well and truly over. This is a great point. It wasn't Trump that changed things in the last 4 years. The world is changing. Multipolarism and this desire by most nations around the world to have a better balance of power and to prevent any one single country from operating with impunity upon the global stage, this has grown to large proportions that are now finally checking and balancing U.S. abuses. The U.S. cannot operate with impunity any longer. It wasn't that Trump didn't start any new wars. We saw him try desperately to expand the conflict in Syria, in Iraq, against Iran. He just couldn't, because U.S. power has waned that much. The world has changed. The world is changing on its own, despite the United States. So I'm pretty sure that that's what James O'Neill is talking about in his article. I thought it was a good article. I recommend people read it. Please help share New Eastern Outlook's articles. They have been banned from Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. If you go to their website, I mean, there's nothing controversial or violent or subversive about any of this. It's just, some of it is kind of academic. Some of it is, more accessible to ordinary people. When you read these articles, none of it is over the top or anything to warrant, such sweeping censorship. But Facebook, Twitter, and Google did anyway, deleted their whole YouTube channel. So, if you can, if you're interested in it, please try to share some of their articles. And if you like this video, please like and share it. Think about subscribing to my channel. It's totally free to do, and I greatly appreciate that. It helps the channel grow. Look in the video description for the link to this article, and I'm also going to pin it in the comment section. And also there's ways there for you to help support my work, like through Patreon, where not only do you support my work month to month, but you also get extra content and benefits in return. And actually, these daily videos that I do are made possible by my Patreon patrons. And thank you so much for that support. And as always, thank you for watching.